Hi there, Shannon Swales, When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast creator, producer, host, everything really. A podcast that was born out of my own lived experience of burnout and my desire to connect with people who were or are going through or have gone through burnout and share my own experience. And it's evolved from there to also having guests come on the show and for me to share professional wisdom as to how to navigate this thing we call burnout to help prevent, recover, and really transform and evolve so we don't get burnt out again. So this is When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. Please note that whilst my guests, some of us work in the burnout field and we are coaches, counselors, therapists in this space, that the information we do provide, the wisdom that we do share, cannot be tailored to meet your personal needs and should not be a replacement of going out there and getting personalized help and support from a professional in burnout for yourself. I can't stress that enough. And please, if you are finding you need immediate counselling, I really encourage to link with your a GP, a doctor, to help you with that. Here in Australia, we also have national telephone and online services, Lifeline 13114. And especially if there is any risk to yourself, if you're feeling suicidal, please contact your local emergency services, your national, I should say. Here in Australia, that is 000, and also Lifeline 13114. With that in mind, please sit back, or if you're someone who listens to your pod while exercising or your commute, whatever you're doing, I hope that you find this episode enlightening and supportive in your journey and your experience with burnout. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now. Welcome to another solo episode of When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. I am Shannon Swales. In this episode, we discuss a crucial aspect of burnout recovery, real change and transformation. We'll be delving into the concept of burnout growth, drawing from the research of Nick Petrie and his team, where I've gathered this information. So much gratitude goes out to Nick Petrie and his team for this information that I'm delivering to you today. It comes to me, the importance of burnout growth really comes from a space of being able to end the burnout cycle. I see a lot in my practice of people having repeated episodes of burnout. So this subject is particularly important to me because Nick Petrie's team have certainly discovered some things that are really crucial to help us unlock the keys to burnout growth and ending that cycle of burnout. So let's dig in. So first of all, I want to share with you, what is burnout growth? How does it differ from simply bouncing back after burnout? So drawing on, again, Nick Petrie and his team's wisdom, burnout growth refers to profound transformation that occurs when individuals not only recover from burnout, but also emerge from the experience with a deeper understanding and renewed sense of purpose. Unlike simply bouncing back, which might involve returning to previous habits and routines. So burnout growth involves a significant shift in perspective and behavior. So when people bounce back, they often resume their old ways without really addressing those underlying issues that led to their burnout in the first place. So they might regain their previous level of functioning, but those behaviors, those mindsets that make them susceptible to burnout are still there, so make them vulnerable to burnout in the future. And in contrast, that burnout growth is about using the burnout experience as a bit of a catalyst for meaningful change. It's often a process of introspection and transformation where individuals reassess their values, their boundaries, their goals, both at work and in life, ultimately creating a more sustainable and fulfilling approach to work and life where they can make those changes. When I look back on my own experience of burnout recovery, I can really see that I fall into the burnout growth uh, definition of what I did there, because there was the choice I made to really do the work and to really discover what is going on within me and what behaviors and mindsets are contributing to my declines in mental health over the years. And in this instance, the burnout. Funny enough, or interesting enough, looking back, I can see that there were other episodes of burnout, particularly after finishing high school and going to university, that was a chronic stress situation. And I think also long-term anxiety, that I was burnt out, but the burnout turned to depression. So I do see that there has been cycles of burnout throughout my life, episodes, and this being a big one. So I feel like I could have like definitely fall more into that bouncing back, kind of like taking a break or making a few changes, but not making the fundamental changes that have led to growth and transformation for me now. Anyway, that's just a little bit of my own reflections there. But let's keep, exploring this a little bit further. So Nick Petrie and his research team define the different paths people take after experiencing burnout. So this is from his research that is done on people who are experiencing burnout, and also people that have recovered from burnout as well. So Nick Petrie highlights that there's two primary paths individuals take after experiencing burnout. So the first path is characterized by taking some time off to rest and recover. Many people taking a break from work, maybe a long holiday, and it can range from a few weeks to several months to recharge and reconnect with positive aspects of their lives. And I think of some guests that I've had on my podcast who have shared their burnout to recovery story. And I've certainly heard that, where they've taken a few months off, engaged in travel, maybe an interest of theirs, sailing or reading more or things like that, and then got back to things. So while the rest, of course, can be beneficial, and I'm often recommending that to people, especially for immediate recovery, it obviously fails to address the root causes of burnout, which is different for everybody. So consequently, when the person does return from that rest, that break, and continues the mindsets or behaviors, or continues to work in environments and with people that are not healthy, that burnout will reoccur. It's just, understandable that will happen. The other path involves making that deeper, more intentional changes. So this requires individuals to reflect deeply on what caused their burnout, like find out what are those factors that have led to my burnout, both from myself individually, my behaviors, my mindsets, things like not being able to say no, to, of course, the environment as well, and what has, contributed there. And also, this path requires envisioning a different way of working and living, and seeking support from mental health professionals or others to make these changes. It's definitely a more challenging route, I'll tell you that. And anyone who's done any sort of life transformation, from the depths of despair, of burnout, or any other, depression, anxiety, it's hard, but it leads to long-term sustainable change. And people who take this path don't just recover, they actually grow. They develop new skills, they create better boundaries, they align their work and life with their core values, just a few examples. And this approach leads to what Nick Petrie and his team has called post-traumatic growth, where the individual emerges stronger and more resilient, equipped to handle future challenges more effectively. So, just to wrap this section up, while rest is important, and definitely I advocate for rest and recovery there, it's the deeper reflection and the proactive change where we can make change that define burnout growth and make the difference between merely bouncing back and truly transforming one's approach to life and work and ending that cycle of burnout. Petrie's research goes even deeper and outlines 4 potential futures for those who experience burnout, each reflecting a different outcome of how they respond to and recover from their burnout experience. So let's explore these paths and see what sets apart those who merely bounce back, as we were just learning, and those who bounce forward, who grow. So the first future, 4 potential futures that one who experienced burnout can have, is post-traumatic stress. What he means by this is a path where the burnout experience is so overwhelming, which it is, just FYI, having lived it and speaking and hearing other people's experiences of it, it is definitely overwhelming. It can lead to lasting distress and challenges. And individuals on this path, the post-traumatic stress path, struggle to fully recover and may experience symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's almost like they get stuck in that initial overwhelming stress of it all. So the trauma of burnout lingers, affecting their ability to function in their lives, to find joy in their work, future work if they're not working, and personal lives. The second possible future is survival mode. People who take this path manage to recover to some extent, often through that temporary time off or some temporary changes. However, they return to their previous state of functioning without making significant changes. So while they might be able to resume their old duties at work or at home, they haven't addressed those underlying issues again, any mindset or behaviors that led to their burnout in the first place, and maybe continuing to be in work environments that are not conducive for them in one way or another, leaving them vulnerable to future stress and exhaustion. The third possible future is what he calls the resilient recovery. So the majority of individuals, he says in his research, falls into this category. So they bounce back to where they were before burnout, resuming their roles and their routines with a sense of victory. Obviously, if you overcome that, you would and should, I think, celebrate that. They've recovered from their burnout, but haven't, again, fundamentally altered their approach or mindset. They've demonstrated resilience, but might still be susceptible to the same pressures and patterns that contributed to the burnout in the first place. And I feel like this was with previous declines that I've had in my mental health, that I've done some work, I've made some changes, but I haven't quite addressed them all. And some of these we're not aware of at the time, till our health declines again, and it's another opportunity to explore and change. And the fourth one, as we've gotten to know already, is the burnout growth, the bouncing forward. So this is the most transformative path. Individuals who take this route don't just return to their previous state, like the resilient recovery path and even that survival mode, or less so with the survival mode. It's still a bit exhausted and stressed. Then the resilient mode, there's that bouncing back. Sorry, just to clear that up there. So they return to their previous state, but they use their burnout experience as that catalyst for that change, to work on their personal and professional growth. They deeply examine what happened. They seek guidance. They make substantial changes to their lives. They develop new strategies, gain new knowledge, skills, and apply them. So this path, he calls, leads to post-traumatic growth, where individuals emerge as more evolved and a resilient version of themselves, better equipped to handle any future challenges and maintain long-term well-being. But just to sum up this area of these 4 potential paths of burnout recovery and growth, is what differentiates those who bounce back from those who bounce forward is that depth of their response to burnout. While bouncing back involves returning to previous state of functioning, bouncing forward involves that very proactive, transformative approach. It requires confronting, and this is where it's really challenging, and addressing the root causes of burnout, making those meaningful changes and embracing personal growth. So this forward trajectory leads to a more sustainable and fulfilling recovery, ultimately resulting in stronger and more resilient individuals. So hopefully it's starting to be clear on what it takes to stop that burnout cycle. But let's keep going. So another thing I wanted to share with you that I've been learning from Petrie and his team's work is about post-traumatic growth and post-traumatic stress and how this relates to burnout. So I know I've already mentioned those terms, so I just wanted to share a bit more deeper information about that so you can take that with you. So post-traumatic growth, or PTG, and post-traumatic stress, PTS, are two different responses to traumatic experiences. And in this case, the trauma is burnout. And I just want to share, because I think I even struggled with seeing burnout as a trauma, because my brain often associates trauma with, of course, major abuses that we've experienced, or major events that have hurt our health psychologically, physically. And I think most of us think about post-traumatic stress when we think of our veterans, people fighting in wars, of course, emotional, mental, and physical and sexual abuse. So this is what my mind went to, of course, and it's like, is burnout traumatic? Well, if it has an impact, and it does, because burnout absolutely alters your life. Well, severe burnout does, and it did mine. It was almost career ending, but certainly career stopping. And career was my life. So it was also identity shifting as well, or identity loss for a time. And it did impact on my relationships and my ability to function. So in that respect, burnout is traumatic, but that might be another episode that we can talk about that. And I'm always open to hearing people's views. But in this, certainly understanding the contrast between these two, post-traumatic growth and post-traumatic stress, shed light on how individuals navigate their recovery. So post-traumatic stress occurs when the aftermath of burnout or trauma leaves lasting psychological scars. So individuals and working with individuals with burnout, I've heard this, they might experience symptoms similar to PTSD, such as persistent anxiety, intrusive thoughts, a diminished sense of self. And this path is marked by ongoing distress and difficulty in resuming a sense of normalcy or functionality. And in the context of burnout, PTS means that the individual remains trapped in that cycle of stress and may struggle with lasting impacts on their mental health. On the other hand, post-traumatic growth refers to the positive changes that can emerge from the struggle with burnout or other traumatic events. It's about using this experience as a catalyst for personal development and transformation. So that, pathway of, I'm just going back in my notes and checking this, that burnout bouncing forward, burnout growth pathway is where we see this burnout of this post-traumatic growth. So individuals who experience this find new meaning in their lives, develop greater resilience, and make significant positive changes to their behaviors and mindset perspectives. So in the burnout recovery, PTG means that the individual uses their experience to grow, setting new priorities, establishing healthier boundaries, and fostering a deeper understanding of their values and goals. So the key difference lies in the outcome. So while PTS often leaves individuals struggling with ongoing distress from their burnout, PTG represents a proactive transformation response where individuals leverage their experience for personal and professional growth. And I'm just taking a moment. I'm so grateful that I chose to do that. But I think having had so many experiences of my mental health decline, it was kind of like, and some of my clients mention this, you just reach this point where it's like, you feel like you have no choice. Like, I've got to do this work. I've got to change things, not just now, but, hopefully forever. Hi there, Shannon here. I hope you don't mind this small intrusion. I'm wanting to let you know about an exclusive opportunity to join the pilot launch of Thriving Beyond Burnout membership. This is a membership for midlife women, so women aged between 40 and 60 who are feeling the weight of burnout and ready for transformation. So as a founding member, you'll get early access to key resources and tools designed to help guide you from burnout recognition to recovery and growth, all while helping shape the future of this membership. So the pilot program runs for a specific amount of time, so a month from October 21st to November 18th, and focuses on a particular theme, recognition and acceptance of burnout, which is key for recovery and growth. So you'll engage in weekly journal prompts, mindful activities, reflective questions that I will provide in the membership, and also attend a live or listen back to the recording of a workshop and a QA session as well on this topic. Plus, you'll have the opportunity to connect with other midlife women going through this as well. And the best part, if that isn't already all that stuff, you'll also be receiving insights, practical tools, and compassionate support from me, a person who has over 2 decades of experience in the mental health field, as well as lived experience of burnout. So your feedback as well will directly influence and shape this community, this membership. So this is a small group experience because I am just maxing it out to 20 to 30 spots for the founding members. And also there will be some special offers at the end if you do wish to continue with the membership, because it is my idea that this will be an ongoing membership in the near future. So the pilot program is just a one-off fee, $99 Australian. And with this, you get everything that I mentioned, but it is investing in a supportive, transformative experience for yourself, helping you thrive beyond burnout. So if this sounds like something that you need, head on over to my website where I have more about thriving beyond burnout. So that's www.burnoutpsychologysupport/thrive-beyond-burnout for all the details. And if you're ready to dive in, I'd love to have you on board. Together, we can create something truly special, and just do so by filling out the form on that website. So don't miss this chance to be part of something transformative. Visit that link, check out the details, and let's start thriving together. And thank you so much for listening. And now back to the episode. Take care of you. Okay, I can tell that afternoon sun is coming in. Hopefully that's not too blinding for you and we can keep going. Or you can switch to just listening to the audio if it is not so great on your eyes. So let's go back. I want us to go back to the 2 paths out of burnout discussed earlier, but focusing on that second path, the more deeper, more substantial changes, which is the one that will help with that post-traumatic growth and help end that cycle of burnout. So I want us to hone in on that a little bit more and help you there. So let's focus on that second path, making the deeper changes. So to achieve meaningful and sustainable change after burnout, Nick Petrie's research highlights several key actions that contribute to what is known as that post-traumatic growth or burnout growth. These actions are aimed at transforming the burnout experience into a powerful catalyst for personal and professional development, as I've said probably 100 times now. So here's the breakdown of the steps. First, reflection. And this, again, it's kind of uncanny. Like, I didn't have this information when I was going through my burnout recovery, but I did have the wisdom from my 20 years of studying and working in the mental health field. So I did have some knowledge and wisdom that I was applying. But what he's noticed, one of the key factors is this reflection, that the journey begins with deep reflection. So individuals need to take time to look back, to analyze what led to their burnout. So this will often involve understanding the specific stresses, the patterns, the behaviors that contributed to their experience. And by examining these factors, individuals can gain valuable insight into what changes are necessary and possible. So we can't change the system, of course, the work environment and other outside factors that contribute to our burnout, but we can make changes from within, whether it be mindset or behaviors, and make choices where we can to reduce and stop that cycle of burnout. So reflection. And I find in our hustle and busy culture that we don't do this. We might have that skill and knowledge and awareness, but we don't make time to reflect, usually till it's too late and we're burnt out, but not too late. That one of the things we want to do is reflect. And once we're recovered from burnout, we want to keep reflecting, checking in with ourselves, just as an FYI. If we want to prevent it happening again, keep reflecting. But certainly in the burnout growth, that deep reflection and analyzing and really doing that work is important. The second key step is seeking new challenges. So to stimulate growth, it's important to seek new and intense challenges. And this doesn't mean overwhelming oneself, but rather stepping outside of one's comfort zone in a controlled manner. So taking on new challenges can provide fresh perspectives and help individuals build resilience. Example, it can be like the actual stepping outside of your comfort zone can be actually doing these things like reflecting, really finding out what's going on, researching and building that skill and understanding of burnout and making those changes that are uncomfortable. It might be actually stepping away from your career. It might be changing careers. It might be learning to set boundaries or being assertive or learning how to be compassionate towards yourself. All of these things can be extremely uncomfortable, and they were for me. There's some of my own personal examples, but also for my clients. So the new perspectives, the new challenges, seeking new challenges can actually be that therapeutic process, that change itself. So yeah, third key factor is colliding perspectives. So engaging with diverse perspectives is crucial. This involves building a network of individuals with varied experiences and viewpoints. By interacting with people who have different approaches and ideas, individuals can gain new insights and strategies that contribute to their growth. I think this is where it can be really valuable to connect with other people who are or have experienced burnout, because everyone's burnout is different, but they can you can gain fresh perspectives from them. It was something that I engaged with in my early stages and ongoingly in recovery, is actually talking to people about my burnout and then finding they had burnt out. And so, exploring and learning from them as well, but also reading books, listening to podcasts on it and people's different perspectives, but also going to therapy and getting help from a psychologist who might see things that I'm not seeing, and help me make those changes. Another key factor for burnout growth is vertical and horizontal development. Now, these are new terms, well, these were new terms for me, so bear with me if they are as well for you. So vertical development involves growing a more complex it involves growing as more complex and multi-dimensional person. It's about evolving beyond your existing skills and knowledge to develop a deeper understanding of oneself and one's values. This kind of development comes from life experiences like our burnout, and also that introspective, that reflective practice. We've got to go in to be able to grow. Whereas the horizontal development, in contrast, is more about focusing on acquiring new skills and knowledge. It's about learning those new techniques and strategies and approaches that can enhance one's capabilities in practical ways. So it might be, when you go to see a therapist, or you might listen to a podcast about how to set boundaries and then applying that to enhance your capabilities. The fifth and last key factor with burnout growth that Nick Petrie and his team discovered is building new habits. So integrating these new habits and practices and knowledge into daily practice is key part of that growth and sustainable change. So this might include, the new boundaries, prioritizing self-care, adjusting work practices, or maybe changing careers. And these new habits help prevent the reoccurrence of burnout and support that long-term well-being. So by following these steps, individuals are more likely and capable of transforming their experience of burnout into that opportunity for significant personal and professional growth. And the goal is to emerge from the burnout as a more resilient, insightful, and empowered version of yourself, hopefully. Okay, just trying to maneuver around that sun, that afternoon sun. So staying with this theme now of, working on that burnout growth and what can help stop that cycle of burnout. So here are some strategies you can use that I recommend. So for reflection, journaling can be a really great way to do that. So we start by keeping a burnout journal, write about your experiences, emotions, triggers. Regularly reviewing these entries can help you identify patterns and insights. Now, this is something that I personally chose to do. And just an FYI, it's not something that I've ever done therapeutic wise in the past. I've written travel journals where I was just talking about my travels, but I think I kept a diary when I was a kid for a little bit, but not in this way, not in this deep reflection, really looking at what I was feeling, what are my behaviors, reactions, and looking at it as a way to help me get to know myself and make valued choices and changes in my life. So journaling is one that I would recommend, but it's not for everyone. So, try it out and see. Self-assessment is another important one. Use of these kinds of tools to evaluate your stress levels, and even to explore work habits and personal well-being. So many tools are available online, or you can create your own based on what you feel is important in terms of checking in. I actually did an episode on tracking burnout where I talked about more about measuring burnout and how you could do that and what that might look like. So I recommend checking that out if you haven't already, and to help with this self-assessment. But it's really good to have some tools to really reflect, where am I at? Because sometimes we're not very accurate with ourselves. So it's nice to have some backup tools with that. So self-assessment. So we've got two: journaling, self-assessment. The third one I recommend is mindfulness practice. So engaging in mindfulness or meditation to gain clarity and perspective. These practices can help you become more aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences, and make it easier to identify needs for change. And again, I have an episode on mindfulness because it is a practice and something that takes time to build. And there can be a lot of misconceptions out there of what mindfulness actually is. So really, it's a recent episode. It's episode 39. Check that out to help build your mindfulness practice. Feedback from others. So this builds on something I mentioned before from Nick Petrie's work, that talk to trusted friends, family, or colleagues about your experiences. They can offer valuable insights, perspectives that you might not have considered. So definitely again, trusted. Not everyone is trustworthy with your experiences, so choosing wisely. And sometimes that might be a therapist, and that's what we're here for. Set aside that time for reflection. If we're not setting aside, it won't happen. So dedicate specific times in your week for reflection. Use that time to review your journal, meditate, because meditation is great for introspection as well, and simply think deeply about your experiences and desired changes. Self-compassion is highly, highly important here. The ability to be able to notice your suffering and tend to it with the attitude of alleviating it is what self-compassion is. It's what compassion is. It's just compassion directed at self. So being able to lean in, to be sensitive and to tolerate our discomfort, our pain, our suffering, and that of others, but in this case, our own, to be then able to do what is possible to alleviate that, not fix it, as I'm always working with my clients, because a lot of our pain and suffering is not fixable. We can't problem solve it away. For example, grief, we can't solve that issue, but we can tend to our grief. So it's about tending to the pain, supporting it in some ways, which might be sometimes as simply as acknowledging it, and maybe meeting up with a friend or someone that cares for us and spending time with them, just as an example. Research, 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 research. Find and absorb information on burnout to build your understanding of it, to help you. The more you know, the better it will be. So knowledge, I always say knowledge is key. Make sure that where you're getting your information from is a reputable source. And that can be tricky in this day and age of the internet and everyone being able to share. But as long as we're, going in there with a critical, not a judgmental, but a critical eye, that not everything that is shared there is going to be factual. So explore and keep expanding and seeing what fits for you. And I've just that's why with my podcast, I've developed this as a way to disseminate this information so you have this knowledge and skills to help you and others in their burnout recovery and growth. So to begin applying these strategies, I always say start with small, manageable steps, especially when we're burnt out. We don't have much energy to give. So we want to pace not just our life, but we want to pace our therapy as well. So start small and build small changes, make big waves. So just, yeah, start somewhere. So it can look like, I know the recommendation is often journal once a day, but no, I journaled once a week. We do what works for us and what we have capacity to do. That is key. And just a note on seeking support and guidance, which is essential for burnout growth. And it's already shown up in this episode discussion already today. But just to highlight in a bit more depth here, seeking support is vital in burnout recovery and growth. We're not meant to do things on our own. So, professional insight, coaches and counselors, psychologists, mental health nurses, depending on their experience level, their knowledge level, can provide that expert guidance tailored to your specific situation when they're working one on one with you. Like in this podcast, I can provide you information, but I don't know if it's going to work for you specifically because I don't know the intricacies of your burnout. So it's very general in nature. But when and that's why it's not considered therapy, podcasts, social media, blogs, they are educational support, they're educational material. But working one on one with a professional can be personalized and tailored to your needs, to your burnout. So they can help you, yeah, understand your burnout, identify solutions, and develop coping strategies with you that, are more tailored to your needs. Objective perspective, supportive peers and professionals offer an outside perspective that can be invaluable. And remember back to one of those key aspects to burnout growth that Nick Petrie's research found was about that different perspectives. So yeah, engaging in supports, through peers or professionals can help you see the situation more clearly and offer advice you might not have considered. And of course, you don't have to take that advice if it doesn't fit or you don't want to. But again, just hearing some other ways. Accountability, having someone to talk to that we trust about what's going on can help us feel accountable to those changes that are needed for that really deep transformation, that burnout growth. So that's where support can be really helpful too. And also someone who cheers you along the way, like who celebrates your progress as well. Don't undervalue that. I did, and it's very, very helpful. Emotional support, recovery from burnout can be actually is very emotionally challenging. And support from others provides that reassurance, that encouragement, and sometimes just someone sitting in the mud with you, making that process feel less isolating. So there's some of my things about seeking support and that being vital. I also want to talk just a little bit about balancing change with existing commitments because this comes up a lot. Burnout growth takes a lot of commitment, a lot of energy, and we have ongoing commitments. We might still be working, but working in a reduced rate. We might still have other commitments like parenting or looking after aging parents or people with partners, friends, family with disabilities. So often we have other commitments, so committing to this growth. So I just wanted to share a few tips here. So balancing that desire for change with existing commitments, just acknowledging that that's challenging. It's not easy and not expecting perfection ever, but definitely not when you have multiple commitments. So first tip here is prioritizing. Determine what changes are most important to you and align them with your current commitments. So focus on changes that will have the most significant impact and are feasible within your current responsibilities. So, if we can see that there's a number of changes that I need to make, that like if we only have capacity to focus on one, find what's going to be the most possible right now, and that might actually have more significant outcome, or just picking one you feel I can do this right now. And it makes me think of a client who's like, well, I can do movement, I can attend a class and start exercising. Okay, great, that's something. So boom, she's off. Set realistic goals. So I think I alluded to this before. We want to, especially when we have commitments, often we're dealing with a perfectionist brain, or a brain that is expecting a mindset that's expecting a lot from us. So we expect perfection a lot, and we set these unrealistic goals, and then we're doomed to fail, understandably. So be realistic with your goals. What is possible right now, considering my commitments, considering my energy, and making those goals. And if you find you're not meeting it, readjust it again. And this is where support's really helpful, because they can help you be realistic as well and drop the perfection. Communicate. If your changes affect others, work, partner, friendships, communicate your needs and plans where it's safe to do so, where there's trust and that they can meet that. Again, not expecting perfection or being unrealistic with your support people, but that, being clearly communicating where you're at and what you may need can help them make that choice to adjust and meet you with where you're at. Create a plan. So develop a structured plan that integrates your desired changes with your existing commitments. This might include setting specific times for new activities, like that journaling, like, okay, I'm looking at my whole week. Yes, Sunday morning between 9 and 10, it's possible. So actually, creating a plan, putting it into the routine, putting it into the diary to remind you, setting alarms if you need to. And the last one here is be flexible with yourself. So understand that balancing change with current commitments is hard, not impossible, but hard. So be prepared to adjust that plan as needed, and allow yourself that flexibility to do so, to accommodate unforeseeable changes or challenges. So the goal is to find balance that supports both your growth and your current commitments and responsibilities, allowing for sustainable and meaningful change. It makes me think of some clients say to me, but that will take ages. Yeah, it will. But trying to expect yourself to do everything now just because you want to get where you want to get to really quickly, the burnout growth, it's not going to get you there. It's probably what it will do is it'll get you back to burnout. Because too much of therapy, too much change, and pushing ourselves, and that expectation and perfection mindset can get us back there too as well. I've just noticed that sun's really come in. I'm just going to move there, adjust a little bit. Sorry about that. The joys of not having a studio. Anyway, the last concluding thought that I want to share with you is encouraging a growth mindset. So to those struggling with burnout, embracing a growth mindset can be incredibly empowering. And so here's some thoughts on this. See burnout as an opportunity. View burnout not just as a setback, because it does feel like that, of course, but as a chance for personal and professional transformation. It can be a catalyst for discovering new strengths and priorities. Commitment to continuous learning. Approach your recovery and growth as a learning opportunity. Stay curious, be open to learning, are willing to adapt your strategies as you evolve. So see it as that learning opportunity, and celebrate those small wins. So in a growth mindset, we celebrate our wins, even if it feels a little bit dorky at first, and it did for me. Acknowledge and celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Each step forward is a victory and contributes to overall growth. And in a world that doesn't celebrate mental health growth, not yet, it should, and we need to change that. But we can change it through celebrating it ourselves and speaking it from the roof if we want to. When people see that, it allows other people to do it. So celebrate your wins, no matter how big or small, and maybe write that in your journal. And growth mindset requires that compassion for ourselves. Remember that growth takes time and effort. And if you have those other commitments and you're already burnt out, you have less of that. So be patient and kind to yourself in this process. And there's my neighbor's dog barking. So embracing a growth mindset means recognizing that you have the capacity to transform your challenges into opportunities for a more fulfilling and resilient life. Before I go, I want to share some resources and further reading for those who are interested in exploring more about burnout growth and Nick Petrie's work. So here are some valuable resources. So Nick Petrie has a blog. So I really recommend starting with Petrie's blog, especially his articles on growth beyond burnout and the 2 paths of burnout. These provide fundamental and foundational insights into burnout and growth, and expands on what I shared with you today. So definitely check them out. Books on burnout and growth. Consider reading books such as Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily Nagoski and her sister Emilia. And The Burnout Solution: 12 Weeks to Calmer You by Dr. Cheryl Zegler. And one that I'm just reading myself, Act for Burnout by Debbie Sorensen. And of course, just a plug for my book, Nothing Left to Give, A Psychologist's Path Back from Burnout by me. Research papers. So I really highly recommend look for research papers and articles on that vertical and horizontal development in leadership and personal growth. Petrie's research is detailed in various white papers and publications related to burnout and leadership development. So Google his name and those terms to find them. And I always go to Google Scholar to find those papers. And of course, online courses and workshops. Explore online courses and workshops focused on burnout recovery and personal development. These can often offer practical tools and support for your growth and journey. So these resources, it's not obviously a finite, list there, of course, just a very brief one, but it was something, I definitely engaged in and still engage in to help others, is, the burnout literature to help expand in my mind and my skills to help me, but help others. So definitely take a look at those. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, looking at stopping this burnout cycle by focusing on burnout growth and how we can go about that. I hope that it has been useful, and I look forward to sharing the next podcast episode with you. Take care of you. Bye for now. Me again. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode of When Burnout Becomes Reality podcast. I do hope that you have gained some insight, wisdom, or taking away something from this episode that is helpful for you with wherever you're at in your burnout journey or helping others with. Please also reach out. I'd love to hear from the listeners, the viewers, to find out what you're finding helpful, maybe what you still would like to know. So please don't hesitate to follow, subscribe, comment, review, like, shoot me an email. I have my details in the show notes. And if you are in need of services around burnout and you are an Australian citizen, I, in my business, Burnout Psychology Support, do offer group and individual services, telehealth, as well as in-person in Brisbane. So again, check out the show notes. I have my contact details, but the best thing to do is jump on my website at www.burnoutspsychologysupport.com. And just a reminder, of course, to reach out for personalized help. This podcast, whilst we strive to deliver information that can be supportive and educational for you, it is not tailored to meet your personal needs, and burnout is very individualized in terms of what gets us into burnout and what helps support us in getting out. So please do seek professional support. And I think that is it for me to share with you. Thank you once again, and take care of you. Bye for now. Thank you.